been a while since I've sold a business, one of my own.
Personally.
Yeah. So going through that reminded me of what everybody else is going through that I'm working with as, people that own businesses that I'm helping sell. Yeah. From young entrepreneurs that are in their 20s and 30s to boomers that are in their mid 60s and are hitting retirement age. I feel like I practice empathy in business, but I've learned it along the way. But going through that just recently, I'm like, oh, wow. I really need to make sure that I double down on the empathy when I'm working with people, because most of the times people sell a business, it's their first time.
Do you know that t-shirt you buy at a joke shop that says, I'm a serial killer, and it's somebody eating a bowl of cereal? Well, cereal actually comes up in entrepreneurship a lot. You run into some people who call themselves serial entrepreneurs. And what I usually run into when somebody says that is they don't actually understand what it means to be a serial entrepreneur. They've tried a couple things, they've dabbled in a couple of things. Maybe they're painting like Hunter Biden and they think they're gonna sell them. I don't know what they're doing, but it isn't serial entrepreneurship. And then you meet a serial entrepreneur and you realize it is a different breed. That's the treat I have for you today on Bootstrapped Unicorns. My really good friend, Carey Sobel, is on today. He's sitting next to me right now, and he is actually a serial entrepreneur with a really cool story. And I don't know where we're gonna go and how we're gonna land all of these things. We're probably not gonna land it all today. There's really no way.
We'll do a second version.
Okay,
Second episode.
Yeah, we're gonna have to, because there's just too much to unpack and too much fun to have. But I wanted to tee this up really strong because you will meet people who call themselves the serial entrepreneurs. And by the way, he doesn't call himself that, and he's not running around bragging. I'm bragging for him. But he's actually got the real deal on what it means to be serial and do some really cool stuff. And he tells the hard truth on all of this. So you're in for a treat. But I should let you know that I'm Josh Pies. I'm the chief attention getter at C47 Films and the host of Bootstrapped Unicorns. And I'm always grateful that you're here and paying attention for a minute. We're here to elevate your journey as an entrepreneur or would-be entrepreneur, or let's say somebody who cares about an entrepreneur in your world. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that we are still sponsored by HireVP. So if you want a virtual professional in your business, go to hirevp.us/unicorns, and you will get 10% off your first 3 months of having a virtual professional working for you. And I will remind you that virtual professionals are that elevated existence of having a virtual assistant. You could hire a virtual assistant, there's tons of VAs out there, or you could hire a virtual professional. That's what we choose to do here at C47. We have 2 currently active and have been there, totally a part of our team, and we're adding a 3rd right now because it's working so well. If you want to follow suit, it's hirevp.us/unicorns. Without further ado, Carey, how you doing, man?
Another day in paradise, sir.
Yeah, and what is paradise for you? What does life look like today?
A lot more tame, I think, but in the same sense, I'm lying because it's not.
Yeah.
Just feeling good. Life's good right now. I have a newborn at home.
Yeah. How's the baby?
Baby's great. He is a big, chunky boy. I think he's going to be a linebacker.
Nice.
I don't know if we'll let him play football, but he's got the body for it.
Yeah, that's actually the way it is with my son, and he's maintained the chunk. He's a little beast, and everybody's like, "Oh, he's going to play football." And I'm like, "No, I think he's going to play baseball, please." But he's actually big into martial arts right now, which I'm great with.
Yeah.
But sorry, I don't think he's going to play for the Phillies.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
How are the Phillies this year?
Phillies are looking good. We had an 8 or 9 game run of wins. Had a couple losses, but Philly sports have been breaking my heart for a long time.
I know.
The highest of highs and lowest of lows, but being born and raised from Philadelphia, that's one thing that I have not let go of is my passion for Philadelphia sports.
So if I recall, John Kruk was the first baseman there for a long time,
he was.
Right? Yeah.
That 1993 team, I could probably name everybody that was there. But Lenny Dykstra was my favorite player.
Yep, I knew he was going to come up. Yeah, so we're in the same baseball era.
Yeah.
And
the best baseball era was the 90s.
Oh, it was the best. It was really good. And then all of the corking and the home run derbies and all that. It was
juicing.
Oh, yeah, all the controversy. It was so good. It didn't take away from the game for me at all.
No.
Yeah, so I remember Lenny Dykstra pretty well, but John Kruk, for some reason, the way he held a bat, and he was like a bumblebee to me, because bumblebees technically shouldn't be able to fly.
Yeah.
And a guy built kind of with dad bod, kind of with like WWE wrestler bod, shouldn't be a good first baseman with a stretch like he had, shouldn't be able to hit the way he hit with the bat position that he had. He was a great player.
So this is crazy that you bring up John Kruk of all people, because I have a baseball bat game used, signed by John Crook with a huge crack in it, sitting in my house right now.
No.
And I'll bring it into the office so you can see it. It's
Oh,
cool.
that is the coolest thing ever. Yeah.
My dad ran a check cashing business in Philadelphia, and the player that would, or I guess the representative that would cash the players' checks would come in and talk to my dad. And my dad, told him that his son is a big baseball fan. So I got balls and bats and autographed gloves and all kinds of stuff. So it's
Out of
pretty cool.
curiosity, that why would a baseball player need to cash a check?
I don't know. It's a great question.
I mean, back then they were making real money.
Yes. But check cashing was a big thing then. We didn't have wires and ACH and everything. So
Okay, all right. Because I unfortunately, and maybe it's wrong for me to associate it in the industry, but I helped with a construction company for years as kind of a consultant manager, and the employees were always check cashing because they were always either behind or needed to drink on the weekend.
I'm sure that has a part to do with it.
Okay.
Yeah, but I really don't know. I'll ask my dad. That's a great question. But
Is your dad the entrepreneur who owned it? You said he ran it.
he did. It was him and his father and his brothers. He's less of an entrepreneur, but he kind of followed my grandfather's footsteps. Entrepreneurship's not really in my blood, in my family.
Okay, I was wondering because I mean you are truly a serial entrepreneur. You've done all of the things.
It's funny you say that because I have in the past called myself a serial entrepreneur, and I think a big part of entrepreneurship is being vulnerable and being able to be okay with taking constructive criticism and learning. And I hired a executive business coach about a year ago. It was last April. And one of the first things that she did was she looked at my bio at my request, and I said, "Could you, just rewrite this and hack it all up?" And the first sentence was an accomplished serial entrepreneur.
She put it, or she removed it?
I had that there. And the first thing that she did was backslapped me across the face.
Why?
Well, she goes, "Accomplished? You're 37. What have you really done to say accomplished? And is serial entrepreneur really something that you want to be known as?"
Fair.
And, I took a step back, and first, I got rocked in the face because...
You had a point of pride in it.
Yeah. But, I did realize that there was a point in my life where I had too many things going on, and I had all these different businesses, and I said, I'm proud that I have all these businesses.
Yeah.
And I was, looking at it as like a couple feathers in the cap.
Sure.
Then I realized that all of the businesses were not thriving. In fact, none of them were. Because I had so many things going on, but I didn't have enough focus on the things that were really going to elevate my career financially. And so, I look at serial entrepreneur both ways. It is something that you can be proud of, but do you have the stuff to back it up? I wouldn't say I do yet.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a journey, right?
It is.
One of the things I know firsthand is, I've failed at more businesses than I've succeeded at, but I've had the benefit of learning through all of these times I've tripped and failed. And those learnings have brought me to a place now where, my business today at C47 looks nothing like it used to. And it, for the first time in 15 years, looks like it actually has scalability and real growth potential.
Yeah.
But it took me 15 years of tripping to get here. And if you look at my whole life with all of the business I've owned, there was a whole bunch of crap that I caused in kind of the same way you're describing, where I was too fragmented and I couldn't grow anything well because I wasn't focused. But I wonder how many of we entrepreneurs have stumbled through some of that cycle in order to figure ourselves out, figure the journey out.
Couldn't agree more.
Okay, so
and I'll give you a kind of a cool little tidbit that stuck with me over the years. So right before I went to college, I opened up a fortune cookie. And the fortune said, "It's the small steps that you will take that will ultimately bring you great fortune." That little fortune cookie, or the fortune from it, is still in my office today and has been with me through my journey. And when I go through the different steps of businesses that I've failed on, that I've closed, that I've sold, that have been successful, unsuccessful, I look at each of those as a stepping stone, right, to where I'm ultimately going to go. And if you can take a life lesson from it, from every single one of them, that's good stuff. And when you talk about serial entrepreneurship, to me, entrepreneurship is just something you have in you. It's kind of like some people are born with it. Some people try to figure out how to adapt or become an entrepreneur. But serial, I don't know how we define that, but to me, it's like starting something, building something, being a visionary, having ideation on what you want to do next, but knowing that maybe it's not this business that you're starting that maybe that's not what it's going to look like when you first thought about it. Or if one business fails and you can learn something from it and roll it over into the next one and have that life lesson. So to me, it's learning from every experience, trying not to make the same mistake twice, experimenting in different industries and spaces, and ultimately just makes you a better businessman over time. So that little fortune I saved when I was, 17 or 18, not knowing that now I can look back at 37 and say, I'm living that. And maybe I didn't look at it every year or use that as I started.
You saved that fortune for 20 years so far.
Yeah, it's decrepit right now.
You need to frame that.
I should.
Protect it.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Like, I'll buy you a frame tomorrow if I need to. That's really cool.
I'll show it to you. And, I'm very involved with UCF, and I'm a UCF graduate. I go back, speak to the students, and do whatever I can to donate time, treasure, energy. And I speak to the outgoing class often that's about to graduate, and I talk about my journey as an entrepreneur. And it is, some people are like, they go into college, they study accounting. Their father was an accountant. They're going to go practice accounting. And they'll probably take over their father's business.
Sure.
And be an accountant. That's their path. Maybe they get to school and they don't really want to do accounting, right? But if they do and they go take that entrepreneurship journey to still own a business, that path could go so many different ways. So I tell my story, which took 300 turns, just explaining to people that embrace every opportunity that you have, embrace every business that you're a part of, whether you're at the bottom level of a totem pole at a large company or a small company or wherever you end up. Learn from every piece of experience, every mentor, have all the conversations. It's just about engaging with people and learning. That's really what it is.
So you've had a lot of, just off air, we were talking, you've had a lot of unique steps.
Yeah.
And I know you were a DJ.
Sure was.
There was something about a bar. Tell me about, so if you Google Carey real quick, what you're going to find is Boss Group, which is an awesome business brokerage. Go learn about that. You're going to find Coastal Group, where he's the chief marketing officer. And I knew you as the co-founder of 321 Marketing even before we ever met. Yeah. And so those are, let's just say, successful businesses where you can step back and go, oh yeah, but getting here
was a lot different.
Yeah, so help me out here. Where does it start?
It starts, I've never really had a job before. I've always kind of just created my own way of earning a living. The first thing that I did was a job. I was a paper boy when I was like 11 and 12.
Wow, I think I've met one of you, and it's you.
Yeah. Yes, and it was in Philadelphia, so it was through the ice and the cold and the snow. But
uphill both ways.
What's that?
Uphill, both ways, barefoot.
Oh, there are a lot of hills up there.
I know
a lot
there
of hills.
are. Yeah.
So the first pathway into, I guess, entrepreneurship, we go to the Jersey Shore every year living in Philly. And my grandmother lived in an apartment complex. And there was another individual who owned another condo in there. And he ran a DJ company. So I'm Jewish. I had a bar mitzvah, and bar mitzvahs are a big deal for 13-year-olds.
Oh yeah, l'chaim.
Yeah, l'chaim. Big productions. We're talking like $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 events, big time events. And it was this gentleman's company that did my bar mitzvah, and my grandmother introduced me to him, and he said, "Hey, you want to learn how to be a DJ?" So I went and I started DJing with him for a couple years, and I watched everything that he was doing, and I said, I want to do this myself. So I worked for him for a couple years, and then when I was 16, I started my own little DJ company, and I moved to Florida in 2004.
Okay.
And when I moved down to South Florida before coming up to Orlando, where I live today, I decided to start a DJ company in South Florida for my senior year of high school.
That totally seems to align with South Florida.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely, for a number of reasons.
Yes.
And I was only in South Florida for like 8 months because I came straight up to UCF. I didn't really know anybody up here. But I brought my DJ equipment, and that was kind of the way that I started to get out and network and meet people. At orientation, I met a buddy of mine named Corey, who was also a Jewish kid from the Northeast in New Jersey, and he happened to be a DJ. So at orientation, we befriended each other and said, let's bring our DJ equipment to UCF and we'll start a little DJ company and see where it goes. So we did. Fast forward, a couple months, I'm DJing all of the fraternity and sorority events. I'm DJing in the bars. I'm doing corporate events up here, and I had my own little DJ company. So that was like my first path into it.
Were you making money or were you just having fun?
Both.
Okay.
Absolutely both. I mean, when you can control the emotions and the vibe of a room with music, which is one of my passions, that's awesome. So, I did that up until about 2017. I partnered with a great friend of mine, an old partner, Matt Zoller. We were Zoller Sobel Entertainment. We ran the company for like 7 or 8 years. Hundreds of bar mitzvahs, weddings, sweet 16s. I eventually had to give it up because I didn't have time to sacrifice on the weekends because of all of the other things I was doing.
Sure.
But it was definitely a fun process, building the business, running the financials, hiring people for the first time. It was electric. And the best part about DJing was that UCF, which is the largest school in the United States, or second, it always goes back and forth between
University
1 and 2.
of Phoenix, I think, rivals like every year. They flip.
Yeah, they go back and forth.
Yeah,
but it's a large school, and I DJ'd at all of the different local bars. So there were 5 different bars that I DJ'd at. So Monday and Tuesday was one spot, Wednesday, and so on and so forth. I met every person that came in. People that were requesting songs, the bartenders, the fraternities, the sororities, the student organizations, and I built a platform of networking through music. And to this day, people still say Sobes, because my name's Carey Sobel, but my name was DJ Sobes.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
And even all the people in Coastal, you'll hear them call me Sobes. So, but through that, I met so many people, expanded my network, and as I started to dive into different things, because the next chapter is marketing, which I'll get into in a second, people knew me as the DJ, but just knew me. And I give everybody respect. I start every relationship with 100% respect, 100% trust until you break one of those two.
Sure.
And that has been a critical part of building relationships personally and professionally. Just by treating people the right way, right? And now I do business with people that used to come in and sit by the DJ booth and have a beer with me while I'm playing. And it was really how I built my network at the largest school in the United States, 1 or 2, in Orlando. And today, to this point, most people that I do business with still bring back the good old days.
Wow.
And the next step into marketing is a critical one. This one's cool. So
actually, I'm going to pause you for a second because something that there's a bit of a parallel in my world that I was extremely networked in Rochester, New York, where I initially built my business. And that level of pervasive networking is still with me today too.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's a secret sauce moment for people, is like, if you are not spending time becoming a prolific networker, possibly not even focused on the fact that you're building a network, but that you're doing something with others that naturally builds the network, that's where the value is, because it's just, you can't even put a number on that.
No, I'd agree with that. And I think I'd take it a step further because I align with you in this, that I think we are natural servants. Mm-hmm. I see that in you. I see that in me. The desire to help people, connect with people. I see you do that all the time. We just did it in here. You made a connection right before we started with 2 people. It's how can I help you?
Yeah.
That's how I start. And it's that natural servant that attracts people to you, attracts opportunities to you, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's a big part of just, in networking, you can go into a room of 100 people. I'm going to come out with 99 friends. Right?
Same.
And it's not coming to the person saying, what can you do for me? It's saying, what can I do for you?
Right.
And maybe it turns into a business relationship or a friendship, but that natural servant, I think we align on that.
Yeah, well, I just think I look back on it, it's just who I am, and I know it's who you are, but it is so useful to be known as the person who can help you solve a problem, meet the right connection of whatever it is, that carries forward, and I haven't been able to quantify the value of it, but it is astronomical.
If you find out how to quantify it, let me know.
Yeah,
we'll publish books on that.
Seriously, I know, and honestly, I almost don't want to quantify it because it cheapens it. Right?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
it takes away the purpose of why we're even talking about it.
Right.
But there is an effect on it that just the simple lesson of be a good damn person. Right? I mean,
we need a few more of those.
We need a few more of those on Earth today, but being a good person is where it starts. And, but.
All right, so I didn't mean to derail you because I want to get to the marketing thing too, but it was just such an important, I mean, it seems so trivial because you should be out networking, but when you treat it as important as it is, and you have that level of, community gravitas behind it before you have personal angles for it.
Yep.
I think it's super important. So marketing, though, let's get into that marketing.
So this was a critical part of my journey. I was DJing. I had access to thousands of people on a nightly basis, predominantly the 18 to 24 demographic in Central Florida, right? So
that's a coveted demo.
It is. Corey, who I mentioned before, who coming full circle, we met in 2005. We're partners in business now. He was a groomsman at my wedding and vice versa. We talked on the phone 3 days ago. We had the idea to create something called Nightlife, night with a K for UCF. Mm-hmm. And what we did was every night that I DJ'd, he would bring a nice digital SLR camera. Mm-hmm. We would take pictures of all the patrons in the bar, snap their photos. We would hand them a card telling them to go to nightlife.com to go check their photos the next day. On the back of the card, of course, was an advertisement for all of the local watering holes or restaurants or tanning salons. And then we took your email address in order for you to log in and see your pictures. And then when you logged in and you downloaded your picture and you made it your Facebook picture, the Nightlife logo was on the little bottom end and a little watermark.
Oh my God.
And we built a brand
that's so good.
that evolved into something huge, at least at the UCF community to start. And we were selling advertising as a publishing platform to all the local businesses and you know, we're talking 2006 to 2008 is when this was running. Mm-hmm. And we had the market like this. We turned it into a promotion company. Since we had that market, places would call us and say, hey, can you bring a couple buses of students out here? You know, and it got really big. And we were generating really good money. We were getting millions of page views a month on our website.
Wow.
People that were coming to the social scene of Orlando from out of town that were at UF in Gainesville and FSU in Tallahassee and FIU and FAU in South Florida, they had their nightlife pictures. And then, you know, some of the other places were saying, can you send photographers to the other places in different cities? So we started expanding to different cities.
Oh my God.
So
this is so good.
It was a really cool way to continue getting exposure, attention, which is imperative in marketing.
Yeah.
And we created a brand that did promotions, and we did nightclub photography, and we took it a step further. We started reaching out to UCF. UCF had big concerts with really big names and big sporting events, and we started to staff our photographers at the UCF events. And then we took a step back. We were approached by another individual that was in tech, and he came to us and said, this concept here of photos is great. This is what drives traffic. He was an affiliate marketer. So he put together a proposal to us to go sell Nightlife and turn it into something called University Life. And instead of being focused on the bars, it was being focused on collegiate, academia, working with student organizations. The student organizations and student government and the constituents that run universities don't want to associate with that other stuff.
No, they don't.
So we built a tech platform. We went out and we raised about $500,000. I was 21 years old. And we got the seed capital to build the platform. And the platform was supposed to integrate with all the colleges. It had a drag and drop calendar that could sync with your collegiate schedule. If you belonged to a fraternity or a sorority or a student organization, there was a portal where you could manage communication between members. And what we would do is we would, at their request, every college has 300 to 600 student organizations. They could log onto their portal, click a button, and we would send a University Life photographer out there for free, because the cost for us to pay for the photographer was easily reimbursed by the web traffic and advertising that we were doing.
Wow.
So this project was growing, and as it was growing, I was learning about raising money. I pitched a company in Chicago, in Glenview, Illinois. It was pretty cool to raise that type of money. And then while I was finishing school, while I was still doing my DJ company, still DJing in the bars at this time, we got an office at the UCF Business Incubator, and we had our funding, and we were building this product. And we did it for about 2 years. Ultimately, the people above us mismanaged the software a little bit, and everything kind of fell apart. But during that process, I continued to expand my network. I had a database of every single student organization president, every single fraternity and sorority president, all of the high-end constituents at all of the universities, a black book of contacts.
Wow.
And
what do you do with that?
Well, the first thing that I did was I tried to make the business work.
Sure.
And then when the business I could see was kind of not going to make it, I said, what value can I get out of this? And that's where my marketing company was kind of spun up. And I started something called Yes Solutions, which stands for Your Everything Source. And marketing was kind of my forte. I did all the marketing for the DJ company, the bars that I was working at. I did all their, and when I say I did, I coordinated their flyer design and their promotions.
Yeah, you're not on Photoshop.
No.
Yep.
No, it was a skill set I wish I had, but so.
Honestly, it would distract you.
It would. Yeah. You know that more than anybody.
Yeah, because I have that skill and I don't want it.
Yeah. So, I spun up a little marketing company, and people would come to me as a marketer, and I'd put myself out there, not just as the DJ now, but the marketer. And they would say, hey, I'm starting a business, or I have a business, I need a website, business cards, SEO. It was just me, myself, and I would farm out all the work, and I started to grow the marketing company. So I'm DJing. I just got out of nightlife and university life, because we did sell nightlife in order to do university life to a friend of mine.
Oh, okay.
For a very small amount of money. And I'm starting to build a marketing company, and I'm like, I don't want to pay rent anymore. So I said, I'm going to go get my real estate license, and I'm going to buy my first home. So I did. And I paid myself a commission. And I said, holy shit, that's a pretty big commission. Maybe I should sell some other people homes. And now I was DJ, marketer, and realtor. And I started practicing residential real estate. The marketing company continued to grow, and that was kind of where I was focusing the majority of my time. I mean, my cash flow was coming from DJing, so it's pretty good money. And I'd saved up some money from university life during my time there. And now I started selling homes. And this was kind of a curveball in my career. A good buddy of mine, Travis, who's actually now a partner of mine at Coastal, reached out to me on a random Tuesday or Wednesday night and said, hey, Sobes, can you go ahead and get me a marketing plan and business plan? We have an opportunity to win a space to put a restaurant in. Mind you,
win a space to put a restaurant in.
Bid against a couple other people to take over a space.
Got it. So it's not like you're in some weird contest and David Hasselhoff's going to hand you the keys.
No, it was a business pitch, if you will.
Okay.
I spent 48 hours straight writing a marketing plan, and we pitched and we won the space. And this space was actually, you've been in Orlando for how long?
About a decade.
Okay, so it's probably before your time and my time, but it was called Harvey's Bistro. It's at the bottom of the Bank of America building, which is now, I don't even know what it is. It's the one that looks like a bunch of different steps.
Yeah.
Okay, so we won the bid, and Travis and the other partners that were involved, including myself, had never worked a day in a restaurant in our entire lives.
Oh, it makes total sense.
Total sense.
For this. Yeah.
So after we won the bid, he said, hey, you helped us get this over the finish line. Do you want to be a managing partner or a silent partner? And I said, let's try the restaurant business. So now put on restaurateur onto the resume. We opened up, it was a 16,000 square foot indoor outdoor facility, 6,000 square feet inside, 10,000 square feet outside. Turned into kind of like a nightclub vibe outside, but inside was a power lunch.
Okay.
30 floor building, all attorneys came down, they had their lunch. If you remember the Casey Anthony trial, the attorneys from both sides would dine at our restaurant every day for lunch. You'd have defendant on one side and prosecution on the other side. The judge was in there too. It was kind of a interesting time to be in that space.
Yeah, no kidding.
2012 NBA All-Star Game, they threw their parties there. It was a really cool experience. We ran the business for a couple years. I won't go super deep into the restaurant, but we ran it for a profit for about 2 or 3 years. We eventually exited it. Great experience for me because now
And so in business broker speak, exited is you sold it.
We sold it.
Okay.
For a profit.
Okay. So many businesses sell because they're running from their bad decisions.
Correct.
And they lose money. You sold it for a profit.
And there were some bad decisions and there were some reasons why we had to sell it, which is a great conversation for another time.
Sure.
But and to just backtrack 1 second, I met my wife in the restaurant.
That's awesome.
Best part about it. And now, I sell a lot of businesses that are restaurants and nightclubs, and so I can look at a profit and loss statement from a restaurant because I ran ours, and now I know what's right, what's wrong, where the skeletons are, just from looking at a P&L sometimes.
It's interesting how the life skills stack like this.
Yeah. Well, and then there was another big learning experience from that is I didn't know that you could sell a business like you could sell real estate.
Right.
So when we sold the business, I was fascinated by the process. And one of our partners in the restaurant that we had, he was a silent partner. He brought the deal to Travis and said, it's yours if you want to win it. He became a silent partner. And now he is one of my partners at Boss Group. And he said to me, he said, Carey, how's your residential real estate, gig going? And again, just to recap, I'm DJing in the bars. I'm DJing corporate events with my buddy Matt. I am running the marketing company. I'm selling real estate. I just opened a restaurant. And he goes, why don't you look into business brokerage? And, because all you need is a residential real estate license, a Florida sales associate license to practice brokerage. So I moved my license over from residential over to Boss Group, joined the team as partners, and we've been running the company since 2012.
Wow.
Also, when I exited the restaurant, I did say I would never do a restaurant again. Okay?
How soon were you in a restaurant?
2 months after being there.
2 months. This always happens.
Yeah.
Every entrepreneur I know is, I'll never do that.
Yeah.
And it's always the famous last words. They always end up doing it again.
Never do it again. So there is a bar downtown that I fell into. A couple partners of mine asked me to be involved in it, to do some of the marketing for it. I raised the money for the bar downtown. And we opened up a bar that I had a small little equity stake in. And that bar had a kitchen. And they wanted nothing to do with the kitchen. Well, after I sold Terrace, I had this concept called Shy-Fi. Shy for Chicago, Fi for Philadelphia. A Italian beef for Chicagoans is like a Philadelphia cheesesteak for Philadelphians. That there's everybody's favorite spot, favorite style, and the food cultures of those cities are really awesome. Jim, my partner from Shy-Fi, former partner because I'm out of the business, was a Chicago guy, very passionate like me, and I'm from Philly, passionate guy.
Which is the true Philly cheesesteak? Is it Geno's or is it...
Neither. It's not Geno's or Pat's.
Really?
My favorite is Steve's.
I've been to Geno's and Pat's.
They're great. They're good steaks, but Steve's that's what I grew up on. Right now, Angelo's is probably my favorite.
Okay.
I like John's roast pork. There's a couple up and coming ones each year. I follow a couple guys on social media, and they just post new cheesesteak places, and every time I go up,
you try it.
But I eat like 3-4 cheesesteaks in 2 days.
Yeah, it does mean it's healthy, but no. You're in Philly for how long?
Yeah, not enough. Not enough. But you eat while you're there. And we opened this concept, which was a food truck, and we took over the kitchen in this bar.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So again, this is all running pretty much in parallel, because when those projects started, I was in the process of exiting Terrace, just starting to convert from real estate to business brokerage, still doing the DJ company, still running the marketing company. And this was about the time that I had a nervous breakdown. And I had to realize that I'm not Superman. I can't do all the things that I'm doing. Love the idea of entrepreneurship. And
can I ask how, some people say breakdown and it's like, oh, I had 15 minutes of anguish and I made some new decisions. And then some people say breakdown and it was more clinical. You don't have to go too deep, but I'm just wondering how
clinical.
bad. Okay.
It wasn't clinical. If I sought help, I probably would have been clinically diagnosed with something.
Okay.
But for me, it was just really trying to figure out what I wanted in life and how to navigate through it. But it was in a state of anxiety and panic. It was, okay, the first hour of the day is here and the next hour of the day is here. And then there's a problem over here and a problem over here. And I kind of said, what do you want out of life? What do you want to do? And there was a pivotal moment for me. I went to a networking event, and the networking event had the hello, my name is name tag, right? And instead of writing your name, they asked you to write your passion.
Oh crap, you didn't know what to write.
Well, people walked in, they wrote their passion, and they walked in. I sat there for 20 minutes just scratching my head going, I don't know. I got all this stuff going on. I have no idea. Finally, I landed on putting things together. And what I meant by that was I like building things. I'm not as good running things. I'm not as good operating. I'm great at putting them together. Strategic planning, a business plan, starting something up. But I won't say I'm not good at it. I don't have a passion for it, right? So there was a moment in this that I skipped over is Yes Solutions was my marketing company. And like I said, it was me, myself, and I, so I farmed everything out that I sold. I was taking all of the design work that I was getting, and I was farming it out to my former business partner and good friend, Joe Booten, at a company called 321 The Agency. And I sent him so much work, and one day he reached out to me and said, let's go meet for coffee. We sat in a Starbucks, and he goes, you're the business guy from UCF. I'm the creative guy from Full Sail. we're playing in the same sandbox. You're sending me all this business. We have our own books. Why don't we merge our companies together? And that's exactly what we did. We partnered up, and we decided to go with the name 321 because he had some big time contracts as an approved vendor. So I moved my book over to 321, became an employee and owner of 321. And it was at that point where I said, okay, I'm going to focus on 321. And I was really enjoying Boss Group because I had all these businesses. And this is the entrepreneurial, serial entrepreneurial part to bring it back to saying, is it a good or bad thing? I was starting all this shit, but I couldn't manage it. But what Boss Group did for me, selling a business, is you still get that taste of entrepreneurship by helping people exit their businesses and learning about all the different ways that people make money, their intellectual property, their different proprietary processes. That lit a fire for me. So I realized marketing and business, entrepreneurship, were my passions. So I focused on those two businesses. And that's what I've done primarily for the past 10, 12 years.
It's interesting how
got rid of everything else.
That hello, my name is badge moment is. Because that really feels like you've identified an interesting pivot moment where you were forced to say, like, what the heck is my passion? Because now you know where it aligns. Yeah. It's really neat.
Well, my whole thing was just work ethic, right? I mean, I had a scare moment with my family where we lost everything. And I said to myself, I'll never be in that position. It was a very pivotal time in my life. It was either freshman or sophomore year of college. And that's why I was working so hard, DJing, stacking cash, and trying all these different businesses. And I always said, I don't want to have just one thing. If it fails, I want to have something to fall back on, which is a good conversation point topic for another time. Can you do more than one thing?
Well, right. And then, I mean, in the investments world, they always say to diversify, don't overexpose in one location. And so I'm hearing the mutual fund version of entrepreneurship, where if you have your fingers in enough things, if 5 things fail and 5 things win, you've averaged, you've evened, which sounds, knowing what we both know about entrepreneurship, is a terrible idea.
Yes.
But at the same time, if you're willing to accidentally cross those belief systems and those understandings of how they work, it sounds on the surface really smart.
Yes, I think so. And it was a couple of those pivotal moments where, going back to the fortune cookie, I learned from every one of those businesses, and the hello, my name is tag, what my passion was, and realized, going through a little bit of a self-awareness journey, what I'm good at, what I'm not good at, and what I'm okay saying I need to learn or I should step away from. I said, it's 3-2-1 in Boss Group, sold my interest in the bar. We sold the restaurant, as I told you. I stopped DJing in the nightclubs. My business partner took over the DJ company for corporate events. My business partner, Jim, took over the food truck. And I pretty much consolidated everything off my plate to be focused on me and my family. During this, I was getting engaged, right? And you can't work 60, 70 hours a week, work weekends, DJing gigs, build a relationship with your significant other. She's been with me through all of these processes. And it was really big in the past month, which I'm sure we'll get to, as I exited one of those companies, taking a step back and figuring out what's next. But that was kind of the journey from 2004 or 5 when I moved to Florida, knowing one other person, to 2024 today, where I'm just doing 2 things, and it's different than the 2 things that I picked.
Well, and it's so fascinating that, I mean, because you had the nightlife and it became university life. So you've got, you're pitching and raising funds, you're selling nightlife, you're eventually selling and getting out of university life, you're DJing, and then you sell or at least trade off that corporate event side of things. Like, your string of starting, running, and selling is very pervasive. And in your story, and there's a lot of people who, when they start something and they finish something, they've started it, sure, but their finish is, I guess I got to clear out the storage unit. I didn't get anything for that. eBay off the computers, and now you're done.
Not all of them were sales.
Okay.
For profit. Some of them were sales for losses. Some were shut. Some literally. So I have so much respect for my partner when we ran the DJ company together, that when we were done and we bought assets and stuff, I just said, hey, this is your passion. We did it together. Since I don't have the same passion you do, you take this business. I don't want $1 for it. Run it. you're the man. Love the guy, still talk to him.
That's awesome.
And, there's been other ones I've sold. University life took a huge loss.
Oh, yeah.
Nightlife was sold for a little bit of a profit to a friend, a little bit of a profit. So saying I exited them or saying I sold them doesn't mean I made money off of it.
True, very true. You profited knowledge and experience.
100%.
And now you take all those lessons with you. And it's just so interesting that you've landed in business brokerage now because you're helping people buy and sell businesses with all of these transactions in your past.
Yep.
And I don't know too many people who have transacted as many businesses as you have.
And there's a lot of brokers out there that have never owned a business. They've never been an entrepreneur. How do you relate to a business owner?
Frankly, I don't know that you can, honestly. I mean, not to throw them under the bus, and I don't know who I would be throwing under the bus because I only know
me and Jim.
You and Jim, and I know a couple other business brokers who also have had some business background. And so the few that I'm privileged to know have that backing.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine not having been an entrepreneur at least once. But I mean, hopefully a couple of times to get yourself to the point where you can understand the process, empathize completely.
That's the key right there, is empathize. And you mentioned earlier, I did exit 3-2 the agency. My partner and I did a buyout, and we were going through the process. And it's been a while since I've sold a business, one of my own.
Personally. Yeah.
So going through that reminded me of what everybody else is going through that I'm working with as, people that own businesses that I'm helping sell. Yeah. From young entrepreneurs that are in their 20s and 30s to boomers that are in their mid-60s and are hitting retirement age. I feel like I practice empathy in business, but I've learned it along the way. But going through that just recently, I'm like, oh, wow. I really need to make sure that I double down on the empathy when I'm working with people, because most of the times people sell a business, it's their first time. Yeah. And it's a very emotional process. You ran a business for 30, 40 years and you don't have an heir to leave it to, and now you want to sell it. There's a lot to unpack there.
I'll bet. Yes, it was interesting watching you go through it because there's a couple of times those of you who are watching this, we're in Coastal Studios powered by C47 Digital Studios. So we are a very tight alignment between our two businesses, and Carey's office is upstairs. And so I'd pop up there and be like, "How you doing today, buddy?" And I'd see the blood is drained from his face. And it was interesting talking with you about that because every time, I don't know if you noticed this about our conversations, but every time a couple of key concerns came up. And I found it interesting that you would talk about making sure the employees were well cared for every time. You also talked about making sure Joe was well cared for because, that you've run with him as long as you have, and it wasn't, they weren't fighting, so, but it was just interesting watching. That was more important. I think money came up once.
The dollar amount was secondary. This was not about a cash grab. This was, the passions changed a little bit. There's different things I want to do in my career. Marketing is always going to be a foundation of what I do.
Right.
But it's not going to be the primary thing that I do. We were making money for our clients, and we did a damn good job of it. But I just realized I wanted to take a different path, so it was an amicable departure. And 12 years running a company, there's legacy there. People associate me with it. And I have 5, 6, 7, 8-year relationships with my staff. And I'm still immersed in the business, just from I do the books. I'm our stand-in CFO, and I know
you've got a couple of years that you chose to stay on to make sure that legacy grows.
Of course,
yeah.
I want the very best for the business. We have an incredible team. Great.
But I just found that remarkable because I think as an outsider, because I've never sold a business, I've had a couple of them go and have some issues, and then I've continued to run this business, and I don't want to sell it.
Yeah.
So so I don't have the same experience, and so I haven't been on the inside to look at these transactions. So from an outside perspective, money's the first thing I think of.
And it is in 99% of the cases. And look, don't get me wrong. I needed to get some consideration for leaving. You put 12 years into something, you need to get paid.
Oh, sure.
But this was just a unique situation because Boss Group is continuing to level up, and we're swimming upstream. We're taking larger listings. We're getting a lot of knocks at the door to do business with us. And Coastal, which we didn't even dive into yet, is a business that
I'll check time. Yeah, we got a little time. That would be awesome.
Yeah, it was a company that I had invested in through a really good friend of mine who's our CEO, and he was wanting to work with me and me work with him for years. And I would say maybe 70-80% of my time was spent with 3-2 the agency. And for me, 70-80% of my time is already more than a 40-hour work week for somebody else, unfortunately. So I started working with Coastal kind of as a contract marketer.
Yeah.
And since I was an investor in the company and all my friends worked there, I believed in it and
Of course,
I wanted to participate with it. So as I exited, I became, full-time over here, and now I'm our chief marketing officer. And I still get that marketing need to use my marketing knowledge in a brand that I own and I'm proud of and I invest in. And, I can balance that passion that I have still for marketing, for putting things together. And it's kind of come full circle, but there's so many nuances in all of these different transactions, lessons that I've learned. And it's a very unconventional path, but each way I had integrity in every single engagement, every single agreement, whether it's with my partners or vendors.
It's why the next one's come along too, because if you didn't have integrity, word would be out.
I think so.
True story. I am the son of somebody who lacked integrity, but he was, in some ways he was a serial entrepreneur. And so, unfortunately for him though, word got out. And the only reason why I know that word got out, it's funny, if you're hearing this noise while we're filming, the HVAC technicians are here taking care of the building, and I can tell they're spraying the coils.
They sure are.
So if you're hearing weird noise in the background, I'll just let you know that we're not gonna be able to filter this out. It's all okay. Great small businesses in the trades, we love them, so we want them to do a great job, and also we like air conditioning because it's Florida. But anyhow, I'll never forget, I was trying to buy a piece of land for an old business that I owned. And I walked up, and I'll never forget this guy, I'm gonna throw him under the bus, I don't even care. John Antitomaso, he was a realtor, he had this listing, it was like 0.75 acres, a commercial area. We needed it for my, back then, my snow plowing company. And so we had this amazing conversation. He only had my first name at the time. And so we get in 40 minutes into this conversation. I'm like ready to put an offer in. Like, first, I had to go and get a commercial realtor. I'm that guy I called first before involving a realtor, and then I was like, oh shoot, I probably should involve somebody. This guy's my adversary, but transactional adversary. But anyhow, so John, he goes, so let me get your full name, and I said Josh Pies. Dead silence.
You knew your dad.
He goes, any relation to Steve? And I was like, yeah, it's my dad. And he goes, not for nothing, but I'll never do business with anybody who's related to Steve Pies. So you won't be buying this property, click. So I called him back. I'm like, excuse me, how dare you? I've got money to spend. And he goes, no, you don't understand. Money coming from him or anybody who's related to him, blah, blah, blah. And he started explaining all of his reasons why it was a poison pill for his client. So he said he was protecting his client. And that was a seed, right? It was hard, and I've had to navigate some of those things. And I have some really like hair-raising stories. But so when somebody like you has integrity through all of the ups and the downs and the learning moments, the word's out. And when somebody doesn't have integrity in those moments, not only is the word out, but you get fewer and fewer and fewer of those moments because the word's out. So I think your story's a great example of how high frequency your awesome engagements and all these businesses are, because you get the privilege of getting another at bat time and time again because you're worth. Well, okay, so tell me about that.
So these are all about life lessons, and like I mentioned earlier, I kind of went on a little self-awareness journey through this. And self-awareness is nothing if there's no self-improvement. Self-awareness starts. So this was actually one of the coolest things that I did. I made a list of, I think it was 30 or 35 people. Friends, business partners, family members, people that I knew like at an arm's length. And I sent them an email and I said, we've probably worked together before. You may be related to me. We're from the same blood, whatever it may be. Send me an email, respond to my email, and tell me everything that you think I can do to improve. I don't want a single thing in this email that says what you do good or that I care about you. I said, I want to know what I can do better.
Wow.
And it was eye-opening. Some people didn't respond. Some people responded with some surface level bullshit.
Sure.
And some people beat the shit out of me. And I am so thankful for that. And it was a time where I was like really deep into like.
Where did you get that idea?
I don't remember. I honestly don't. I know I got it from somebody.
Sure.
It might have been a book, or I was studying empathy and studying self-awareness. And then I'm like, okay, well, I can be self-aware and I can make my own assumptions and realizations, but let's hear what the third party says, especially those closest to me. And every one of the business owners that I mentioned in my path was in there. some of my close relatives that I look up to or whatever. And it was through that conversation that I went on that kind of self-awareness journey. And one of the things that popped up was, you're always too busy. One of them that popped up and said, I don't feel like you always listen when I'm talking.
Okay.
One of them is, you feel bad about saying no. And this was a common denominator with something in my marriage, where my wife was saying, you have to be okay saying no to a social event, to hanging out with the guys, to a new business opportunity that pops up. So that was, and that's where I'm getting at, is saying no is okay. I think it's, I don't know who it is. It might be, who's the guy from Virgin? Bronson.
Yeah.
He said something like, business opportunities are like bus stops or buses. There's one coming around again, something like that. So every time a business opportunity would be pitched to me, which is very often, I'd get super excited because that's my personality. I wear my heart on my sleeve, and I'd be like, all right, let's go. How can I help? Let's go. I want to be a part of this. I'm getting good at saying no. I said no once this week. I said no twice last week. And these are, hey, want to be a partner in this business? I'll give you sweat equity if you do A, B, and C. Now I'm trying to protect my time.
Wow.
And now I'm trying to say no. And the power of no is not disrespectful. If anything, it's respectful, because I know if I commit or overcommit, I'm not going to be able to deliver.
Right. So now you're harming that person's big idea by being the wrong person for them, even though they were convinced you were right. So
there was one other piece of advice in there that I think was pretty cool. Somebody said to me, you work too much with your hands and not your head. Because I like to do. I'm not a great delegator, and I'm working on that. That's what my coach and I were talking about today.
I also have noticed that. Yeah.
Because I'm like, one, I'm going to do it better than the other person I'm delegating. Two, I have to take the time to delegate it, right? So now I'm just wasting time. But being able to work with my head, and that's what I'm doing now with Boss Group, creating more processes and systems and bringing on people to help. And with Coastal, meeting with our CEO a couple weeks ago, he goes, I don't need you to do all the things. I need you to direct all the things. So.
And that is the CMO role.
Yes.
Have you run into Jeff Hazlett, the cowboy CMO?
I've heard of Cowboy CMO for sure.
Yeah. So Jeff, he's an interesting dude. I've had a couple meetings with him. When he was the CMO of Kodak, we were a vendor.
Wow. Okay.
And so I was spending a little time with him, and he's quite the Yahoo. And actually, his best moments are when he was actually on The Apprentice with Donald Trump, and he was launching some Kodak product.
You know what? I think that's where I know him from.
Yeah. So I have his Fog the Mirror book somewhere in the office, and I've got Jeff's signature to me and all that, which is fun.
Very cool.
I bring Jeff up though because he was the first person to kind of corner me as I was saying, well, Jeff, why aren't you doing this? And he goes, in his vernacular, do you think this fucking cowboy does any of that? I'm like, yeah, I do. And he goes, then you don't understand what a CMO is. I was like, oh.
That's powerful.
Yeah. And then he did take a minute, in again his very cowboy way, to explain to me that a CMO is exactly what Greg's asking of you, which is, this stuff, and I need you to know it so well that you can trust the people around you to handle it. And that's what a CMO does.
Yep. And it's cool too, because I've ran side by side with Greg for 20 years. He's ran his businesses, I've ran mine. He's been really successful. I've done okay. And we always talked about working together, and there's no ego or pride in what we're doing together. So him, he'll look at me and say, hey, sometimes I'm the dumbest person in this room, but look what I'm doing, right?
Right.
But he offers incredibly contrarian, different perspective that I fucking love. He's just like, hey, think about it. He'll come, in a meeting, we're going left. Everybody ready? Let's go left. Next day, I decided we're going right. And those pivots for me, I'm usually the one calling some of those shots, and I don't want to have those shots to call anymore. I'm done with that with 35 employees. But I love the different perspective. I really do. It's been really cool. And I need to be told I can accept the constructive criticism in a positive way. Yeah. And that's a big part of entrepreneurship too.
Yeah, that's cool.
There's a big ego part of running a business that you almost have to have, but you can do it respectfully.
I struggle with that a little bit though, because so I also another big name drop, John Maxwell. I used to produce a lot of content for him, write with him, work with him. And John, it's everything he's talking about is, if you're focused on leadership, then you are breeding leaders. You lead from behind. You build people up, and then you let them go and grow. And so as an entrepreneur, And I experienced this more than once because, I thought I was going to have a baseball career. I lost it.
I remember you saying that.
Right. And so with that, my identity was wrapped up in my career. And I had some ego about it. And I lost it, so I didn't know who I was. And then with the big snowplowing business I owned, I had the same thing. When it crumbled, I was like, well, I was the young millionaire, and now I got nothing. Who the heck am I? And I'm a twice failure now, which that's interesting. And do I identify with that?
Yeah.
And so the ego thing for me then wasn't very useful. And my snowplowing business, I'm glad I don't have it, but I something that could have been a key to possibly rescuing the business would have been if I had been a leader who cared about building leaders. One of my other leaders might have caught the problem before we lost everything. And I also, if it did go away, would have been able to be proud that I helped other people grow, and I didn't have anything like that. And so I wonder, because you say this ego thing comes a little bit with it. Maybe it does, but I regret as much as I had in both of those instances. What do you think about that? Like, how does that balance?
So when I think about ego, it's probably a little bit more just confidence.
Okay.
Because I don't know, I don't even know how you would define ego. I mean, ego can be looked at, I guess, positively or negatively, probably as more of a negative connotation.
See, I think that's how I instantly took it. Like, that jackass has so much ego.
Yeah, it's probably not the right word, but I mean, it has to be some sort of like sense of ownership, leadership, confidence, empowerment. When I ran 321, I had a lot of employees, and I always led with a, this is the way, but I'm not saying it's the right way. Show me something different and we'll go do it.
Yeah, that's cool.
Because it wasn't, there's this graphic in my head, and there's a bunch of people pulling a cart. And then there is the leader that's sitting on top of the cart pointing forward while the people pulling forward. And then there's a picture next to it of that leader that's not in the cart, but it's out in front of the rest of the people that has two hands on it pulling with them. That's my style. I want to be on the ground. I want to get my hands dirty. I don't think that my perspective is better than anybody else's. If I'm owning and running the company, it's on my shoulders to ultimately make the decision.
Sure.
And I'll go with my gut, but I'm not going to not let it be influenced by other people.
Right.
And other perspectives. So by ego, I just mean like I'm ready to hop out in front and be that guy. But it's not ego to where I'm going to sit from the top and say, because I'm that guy, you guys got to listen to me and this is the right way.
Okay, so you've got a positive connotation to ego that is far more, in my mind, analogous with the way I would use the word confidence.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, similar. Ego is not the right word. How do we even land on ego? What did I say?
Well, it was something about, in order to be an entrepreneur, you've got to have a certain measure of ego. And
I think let's redact that.
Okay.
It's not a measure of ego. It is a entrepreneurial spirit, risk tolerance, and drive.
Yeah. Oh, and the drive is required.
Yeah.
I am fully on board with drive and risk tolerance too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On both ways. You have to be risk adverse. You have to be risk tolerant. You have to marry the right levels of risk. That was something beautiful that my partner and I had at 321.
That's an interesting term. It's marry the right levels of risk. How's your wife on all of the risk?
She has a lot of confidence in what I do. So I think she knows that since I've always had 100 things going on, I always have our family's ass covered, that something is going to be okay.
Yeah.
So she's probably more risk adverse, but she's confident in the decisions I've made in the past.
See, I have the same thing, and I was wondering if maybe there's, for entrepreneurs, especially ones who are unmarried right now, as they might consider long-term relationships and getting married, which I consider a permanent relationship, that is something to keep in mind is, can this person trust you enough, even if they're risk averse, trust you that you will find a way? Because I'm blessed. I think you're blessed too, that we have people who believe in us so much.
Well, and so my love language is words of affirmation. So I get that from my counterpart, my wife at home. From the risk side or from lessons learned side, I don't share a lot of that stuff with Lauren, but I have trusted people in my life that I show vulnerability to that coach me. So I met a mentor for the first time in my life. I met my mentor in 2017, 2018 by happenstance. Now he's one of my best friends. We're business partners. I wouldn't be where I'm at without him today.
Wow.
My wife and I have been seeing a marriage counselor when we had the adoption of my daughter to deal with that turned into a marriage counselor for our marriage. And now she's our friend. Like, we go see her when we're not having issues.
Sure.
So I have somebody to govern, that. And then I hired, like I said, an executive business coach to teach me about being a better leader and being a better businessman. So I'm investing time and money into 2 of the 3 people to help me in my journey.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big part of entrepreneurship is if you have that ego and I can do it myself, you're gonna screw up.
Right.
And that's where the ego is looked at in a negative connotation.
That's right. When you know it all, you are surefire going to find out you don't know it all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's awesome. Hey, let's leave it there because what's going to happen is Carey's going to come back on again and we're just going to dig into other stuff. I think this needs to happen. Maybe you're my co-host now. I don't know. So if you're looking to actually follow Carey in socials, what you got to find is Sobes is available as just Carey Sobel. He's around. And also I would encourage you to follow the Boss Group. That is where you can get all sorts of education about what it means to be a buyer and or seller of a business. And it's a topic that I don't think enough entrepreneurs are actually talking about.
They're not.
Because I usually hear you guys saying like 3 to 7 years before you're going to sell, you should start talking to a broker so that you could have a sellable business.
Absolutely.
Is that still true?
Well, yeah, I mean, you need to know what your business is worth.
Yeah.
And that's the first step. And then you need to find out what your target is for exit. You have to have an exit strategy.
Sure.
And there's going to be a gap. So the sooner that you find out,
I actually get a little agita just thinking about it because if you've built your business in a way that it makes it slightly unsellable or wholly unsellable,
that's where
you want enough time to revise your business plan and change banking relationships, partner relationships, or whatever it is that makes you better off.
That's right.
And that does not happen overnight.
No.
Yeah,
that's right. It's never too early to begin the conversation.
Yeah. So you got to find Boss Group and follow them too. These are people I believe in. These are people I trust, and I just think you owe it to yourself as a business owner, or maybe even future business owner, to avail yourself of information and conversation like that. I think it's really important. We never even got into Coastal Group. So Coastal Group does what's called alternative investments, and we'll just talk about it another time because this show's going to run too long. Carey, thank you for hanging out. This is really cool.
Pleasure is mine. This is great.
Hey, can we cut this up and let you use it in your social?
I would love to.
That'd be fun.
Yeah,
awesome.
Let's do it.
All right, so watch his social and you'll see some of this too. Again, you're watching and listening to Bootstrapped Unicorns. I'm Josh Pies. I am your host, and I have no clue who's going to be the next guest. As you know full well, I don't even track that stuff. All I promise is it's going to be a valuable conversation that will give you something that you can use on your entrepreneurial journey. I don't think I mentioned it in this episode, but we do have the Facebook group. I want you to join it if you are either an entrepreneur, a former entrepreneur, or a would-be entrepreneur. All kinds are welcome in there. We don't sell in there. What we do is we hang out with each other in a way where if you ask a question or start a conversation, people who actually have authority from different positions in the world of entrepreneurship can speak into the topic. It is a mastermind, it is a hangout, it is all of those things that you would want it to be, so you need to join. We'll see you in there, and we'll see you on the next episode.